Ex-Yandere girlfriend returns. Hey there, creepy fox. Before I begin, I just want to say, I found your channel after listening to some of your Yandere Stories videos. It's just crazy to think I had no idea what that was. And after watching some of your videos on the theme, I couldn't help but think how that character type, if you will, matched an ex-girlfriend of mine, who to this day I have never forgotten. You see, as I sit here and write this out to you, I truly think back and wonder, what was I thinking? I mean, who knew that meeting my so-called love was going to lead to a series of events that would forever change my perspective of life itself? Back then, in the year 2003, I was a young and naive 24-year-old college student. I was in my second to last semester of college, studying biology. And during one of my trips to the library, I would meet her. A shy girl, cute with short blonde hair, blue eyes, glasses, and a smile that read, "Hello, nice to meet you." She sat in the corner of the library all by herself, as groups of students in their so-called cliques studied together and laughed alongside the silly jokes only college students would find amusing. I went up to this lonely girl, seeing as all the other tables were full, and I asked if I could take a seat with her. She said it was fine, and after a couple of minutes she asked me what I was studying for. This led to a small conversation, and after about 45 minutes, she left. The next day I went back to the library to study, and there she was. Only this time, she was joined by one of her friends. Cute, just like this girl. Anyways, she waved over to me, and I excitedly went to sit with them, with a dumb smile written across my face. I remember the first thing I overheard her female friend say as I approached them was something along the lines of, "Oh, is he your boyfriend?" The girl, which in my retelling we will refer to as Jessica and as my ex, blushed and told her friend to keep her voice down. At any rate, these little so-called study dates, as I look back and refer to them as, continued for about a week, and during that time period I started to grow feelings for Jessica. She was just like me, shy, albeit confident once you got to know her. In fact, I got to know her so well that after about 3 weeks we went on our first date. That led to many more, and soon we made it official. We became boyfriend and girlfriend. What a time it was to be alive, I would tell myself every morning, as we'd meet up for coffee and hold hands and smile. It wasn't too long after that initial lovey-dovey period, however, that I would truly get to know Jessica's personality. You see, any time I wasn't with her, she would want to know where I was and who I was with. Even if I was spending time with my grandma, she'd get mad, and she'd say I should be hanging out with her instead. These little things I wrote off as just her joking manner. Finally, however, the final straw was when we had a falling out one evening, when she thought my cousin, female, who she hadn't met before, was some sort of secret lover of mine that I hid. She told her and myself a lot of bad things that I believe I truly can't repeat here, so I'll just say it was enough to question the relationship. We took a break after that, and after a bit of on and off, we broke up 6 months into it. How I thought that was going to be the end of the story. Jessica would move on, and I would too, and so it seemed. That was until a year later, now graduated and working for a laboratory. This was when I met another girl, who, spoiler alert, is my wife to this day, and in this story, we're going to refer to her as Amelia. We hit it off almost immediately, and just like my previous relationship, we became official about 2 to 3 weeks later. But right away, the stark differences could be noticed. Amelia wasn't needy, didn't question me on strange and bizarre things, and best of all, was polite and respectful. I treated her, and I continued to treat her the same way back. Nonetheless, after a year, she moved in with me since I had just purchased my own house thanks in part to the help of my wonderful parents, and we started to live our normal adult lives. We'd go out on dates, visit the family, and go for strolls in the park. Fast forward to an evening and we're out celebrating my wife getting a promotion. Outback Steakhouse, both are our favorites. We sat at one of the tables next to the window that overlooked the street as you could hear the hustle and bustle of cars pass by as music played over the speakers. While we started on our appetizers, she walked over to us. No, not a waitress, not a manager, and definitely not a friend. It was Jessica, and she looked just the same as she did before, only now her hair was a bit longer. Now, Amelia knew about Jessica and had talked about her a couple of times before, so she too was caught off guard by her sudden appearance. I remember the first thing she did was ask me how I was doing and if I missed her. I guess she didn't get the clue I was with my now future wife. I told her I was doing okay and that I wished her well, and as soon as Amelia was about to say something, Jessica snapped. "Was I talking to you?" I still remember Jessica yelling to Amelia, as my wife is surprised and is starting to get visibly upset. I tell Jessica, now going from calm and collective to annoyed and flustered, that she needs to leave, but she says that she wants me to give her another chance. It wasn't going to happen, I told her. What she does after that was truly out of the ordinary. She grabs one of the butter knives at our table and then proceeds to drive it right into the bread. By this point, a waiter comes over to us and is asking if everything is okay. Not that the eyes from all the other patrons wasn't making this awkward. Jessica ends up leaving, but to this day I'll never forget what she muttered under her breath. "Just wait. You'll see what happens." Jessica then returns to another table, where for the first time, I see her mom and dad, who I haven't spoken to since we broke up. Well, let's just say we cut our dinner short, and we left opting to get takeout instead. Now, yeah, I felt really bad. I couldn't stop cursing at myself for allowing this to happen, but Amelia, bless her heart, told me it wasn't my fault, as we had no idea she was going to be at that Outback Steakhouse. She had a point, but I still felt guilty. So now we fast forward roughly a week after our dinner was spoiled. It's a weekend evening. Amelia and I had just finished grocery shopping, and we're returning back home, excited to make some popcorn and watch some movies. As we pulled up into the driveway and start to grab the groceries from the back seats, our elderly neighbor, Maggie, comes over and asks us if we could help her with reaching the beans that are up high in the kitchen cabinets. Normally, her son would have helped her, but he was out working late. My wife offered to assist her as I head into her home to begin the process of unpacking everything. But right away, something seemed off as I put my hand on the door handle and hear the sound of the front door screech. Run, was all my brain was telling me to do. I couldn't really explain it to you, but it's like my sixth sense was telling me something was seriously wrong here, and I was in grave danger. I blamed this on my paranoia and walked over to the kitchen nonetheless. This was when I noticed something. There was a cold breeze sweeping through the room. Bingo. The back glass sliding door was left open just a hair. Now, it does lock, but it wasn't exactly the greatest door. You see, with enough effort, it can be opened. I promise. This is important for all of you to know. So I start to put the perishables inside the refrigerator, and it's now I finally tell myself I should go use the restroom, because I've been holding it in for the past 15 minutes. I head upstairs, since that's where the bathroom is, but I head to my room first so I could grab my charger for my phone, which is lying peacefully on the dresser, which faces our bed. Just as I reach for it, I hear something opening, and I turn back to look, and in my absolute unbelief, I'm left dumbfounded, because standing there is Jessica, and she's got a knife from my kitchen. Time seemed to have moved into slow motion, as my immediate thought was I needed to run, and I didn't question these motives. I book it toward the door, as Jessica exits the closet she was hiding in and begins to chase me down the hallway, telling me I was going to pay for breaking her heart. I then proceeded to jump out the front door just as Amelia is walking back to our porch. I grab her arm and I usher her over to our neighbor Maggie's home as we lock ourselves in place and proceed to call the police. All the while, Jessica is screaming, losing it, and asking me to forgive her and accept her back. Cops did get there about 5 to 7 minutes later, and after a bit of debrief, my wife and I are able to get ourselves cleared as Jessica is taken away in the back of the police cruiser. I proceeded to file a legal dispute and I got a restraining order placed against Jessica. She wasn't allowed near me, nor Amelia. Thank goodness that after this nightmare, which seemed to have gone on forever, finally it came to an end, and Amelia and I returned to a somewhat normal and peaceful life. We ended up moving out of that house a year later, across the country, after I was offered a better job, and we left that old life behind. It's been 15 years that this took place. Amelia and I, as I mentioned earlier, are now married. We have 2 beautiful girls, and they are the love of our lives. Alongside them, we live with our 2 wonderful Newfoundlands, and we haven't had any sort of problems and issues since. As for Jessica, the last thing I ever heard about her was that she ended up getting married and moved to Tennessee or something. I really don't care, to be honest. I'm just glad that she appears to have finally gotten her life turned around. It's just a shame I was the one who went through her rage. By the way, remember how I said the back glass sliding door being able to be opened was important? Well, how do you think she got in order to hide and wait for me? Yup, same door. So, that's the end to my submission. I hope you all got a kick out of it, as much as I did writing this down and sharing it with one of my favorite narrators, the Creepy Fox. Blessings to you all. Let's make 2021 our year.
For context, this story is from the perspective of a 23-year-old male, and it's a story about an ex of mine. So, many years ago I worked for a coffee shop. That, funny enough, started with me going almost every single day as a patron, as I studied for college courses on my laptop. Anyways, after the owner overheard me talking to a friend about how I was looking for work one afternoon, he gave me a position. At first things were fine. I worked Thursday through Sunday, in the evenings as a barista, while during the week I went to school like normal. After about a month of my employment, one of the baristas left as she was moving out of state, which meant my boss was looking to hire someone new. We got someone new within the week, a female barista, aged 20, who in this story I'm going to refer as Kayla. She was very sweet and, just like myself, enjoyed all things anime. You should have seen the smile across her face when we met, and she saw the little Pikachu pin I had on my apron, alongside my Goku pin. During the following weeks, we would talk about all things anime, including our favorite series, characters, and all those fun quirks. Soon enough, I found out through my coworker Brian that Kayla had a crush on me. Little did she know, I did as well. But we were both pretty shy people. We hadn't had the courage to tell each other about our feelings. Now, I'll save you the trouble and just skip to it. We became boyfriend and girlfriend, and we were as happy as could be. Of course, we had to keep it under wraps while at work, since most places don't like when you date coworkers. A lot of times you hear stories of how couples break up, which leads to a very awkward situation when both of them are at the same job. At any rate, we became more and more attached like glue as time went on. Going to the movies, going shopping, typical boyfriend and girlfriend activities. The only thing is that I slowly started to notice something about Kayla that was beginning to raise some alarms. Anytime I had talked to a girl, whether it be a customer at a coffee shop or when we're out together, Kayla would get mad if she saw me. And I'm not talking about what you might expect from a typical relationship. She would not only yell at me and call me all these names, but she would say that if she ever found me talking to a girl behind her back, things were going to end really badly for not just me, but my family. Now, when I heard her first say that, I was a bit shocked, but I was blinded by her love. I didn't really bat an eye, other than just awkwardly laugh it off as some sick and complete joke. Things would come to a head one afternoon when it's just myself, Kayla, and the owner working at the coffee shop. The owner was sitting outside on the patio talking to some friends, while Kayla and I were helping out the customers. At one point, Kayla goes into the back room to use the restroom, and I'm just standing there catching a break after getting hit with the evening rush hour. After about 3 minutes of a breather, a woman, early 30s, wearing business casual, walks in and begins asking me what my favorite drink was. She told me she was new in town and this was the first coffee shop she decided to come into. So I gave her my recommendation as we talked for a minute. And just as my girlfriend walked out of the back room, this woman says something to me in a flirtatious manner that would light a fuse in Kayla. "You're a very kind and handsome young man. Are you single by any chance?" she more or less said. And Kayla snapped. Overhearing this statement, I turned around and she yelled at the woman as she proceeded to grab a piping hot pot of coffee and throws it in the direction of the woman. Thank goodness it missed and instead fell on the ground. It still stained her shoes and pants, however. Kayla then flies over the countertop and pushes the woman, who then falls into a display of coffee. The owner happens to see this through the window and comes running in with his friends. As I'm trying to stop my girlfriend from tearing this woman to shreds, Kayla actually bit my arm and then scratched my face, as she then turns her attention back to the woman and told her that if she ever saw her again, the hot coffee was going to be the least of her troubles. The cops were called, and after a lengthy apology from both Kayla and our owner, the woman decides not to press any charges. However, Kayla wasn't out of the trouble just yet. She was fired after the police left. What was I to say? I stayed silent, and later that night, Kayla apologized for snapping at me and told me it would never happen again. Things went downhill after that incident, as the relationship got even more toxic. Fast forward to final season, I have to do a film project with some classmates. This required me to spend more time with them and less with my girlfriend, which of course she didn't appreciate. Now, I was always open with her, so when I told her I'd be going to film, she was surprisingly calm. She just asked if there was any girls and I was to let her know, as if that's not toxic enough. I told her it was just guys, which was true, and she seemed to calm down. About an hour later, I'm on campus and we're goofing around, adding to our ever-growing list of blooper reels as we try to film. As we're working, a group of classmates, all female, walk over to the group and ask if they can join in on our shenanigans. We agree, since at the time, we didn't think much of it. And not even 30 seconds later, I see someone running over to us from behind a tree. It was Kayla, and the look on her face said the whole story. She was beyond angry. Best I could compare it to be a yandere you might see in an anime. She proceeded to jump in front of me. Then, as if it couldn't get any worse, takes out a box cutter and starts telling the girls to leave, or she was going to reach her breaking point. The girls were all scared off, and at this point, I finally had enough of Kayla. I couldn't believe she had been watching and stalking me secretly. Now, maybe not the best idea, but in front of my group of friends, I told her it was time for us to separate. To my surprise, she didn't cry, but she did laugh. And this was a laugh I could best compare to from what I'd heard of someone who was going crazy. Think of the final episode of Death Note, if you've ever seen it. Maybe not as super exaggerated, but something along those lines. She then told me to go, you know what, to myself, before flipping me the bird and walking off. Myself and my friends just stood there more in shock at the fact that she had essentially no-sold, if you will, our breakup. Now, I hate to end this in such an anticlimactic ending, but after that afternoon, I never heard from Kayla again. It's like she moved to another country or something. It wasn't until about 5 to 6 months later, a mutual friend mentioned that Kayla had started seeing this guy, who had been in and out of jail for quite some time. Sad, really, but I was able to let go of that toxicity, and continued my college career, eventually graduating and moving out of my house. So, my friends, Please stay safe. And if you're in a toxic relationship, take my advice. Don't let yourself get comfortable, because it's not worth it at the end of the day. At least, that's my opinion.
Twisted Revenge. Just to quickly preface my story, this is coming from a female, and it's from the year 2011. At that time, I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 2 years, and I was at a low point in my life. I didn't really want to see any of my friends, and I just opted to go back to my dorm as soon as my classes were over. My roommate, Ellie, noticed the change in my behavior, and she was the one who encouraged me to go out more. In a way, it was a blessing, but it was also a curse. You see, a couple of days before Halloween at a party, Ellie introduced me to a friend of hers, who we're going to call Josh. He was a handsome fellow, tall and medium built, blue eyes, brown hair, a light stubble for facial hair, and a really nice smile. Ellie had mentioned that he himself had gotten out of a toxic relationship, and he was looking to make some friends. And at first, that's how things were. We started off just talking about common interests, as we both loved art and running. Every morning we would meet up at 6 a.m., and we'd go for a 2-mile run around the campus before going about our daily lives. During our breaks, we would meet up and grab food, and then we would sit in the school arboretum and draw while listening to music. How sad, because for all the negative things that would happen, I really missed those peaceful afternoons at the arboretum, as you could hear the birds chirping and feel the wind press against your cheeks. Eventually, he asked me out, and I of course excitedly said yes, as my confidence had now more or less returned. Fast forward to about 2 weeks after we officially started dating. I'm on Instagram scrolling through my feed and commenting on friends' posts, when suddenly, I notice a notification for Facebook. I exit Instagram and hop on over to Facebook, and it's a message from this random girl I've never met before. Essentially, the message said that they were my boyfriend's girlfriend and that I wasn't allowed to be with them because she was his. Naturally, all the alarm bells are going off in my head, and I'm wondering what kind of sick joke this could possibly be. In that moment, something clicked in my head, and I recall Josh telling me about an ex-girlfriend that he had. And this was something that I confronted him about, and he then proceeded to break down and explain himself. Apparently, the reason he had broken up with that girl was because of how toxic the relationship was. I guess she was the very paranoid and clingy type. She even once threw a knife in his general direction, missing him by just a few inches, as it got stuck in the wall next to him. The crazy part was there was no explanation for it. She just went mad. I know looking back that this was pretty bad news, and I should have really thought about things more. But I really loved Josh, and he loved me. He assured me and swore left and right that he would never do anything to hurt me. And that girl who messaged me was no longer a part of his life. Well, what do, you might ask? I proceed to block her, and that seems to work as there's no more further contact. But things aren't over just yet. They would come to a head a month later. It was a movie night, and Josh's parents are away for the weekend. I'd gone over to his place to not only accompany him, but to get away from the busy and annoying life of the dorms. There we were, at around 10 p.m., sitting on the couch, watching comedy movies, and having ourselves laughs, when all of a sudden, we hear what sounds like scratching at a door. Josh turns the volume down, and for the first few seconds, we don't hear anything. We assume it was from the movie, but as Josh is about to turn up the volume, we hear scratching again. This alarmed Josh and I, as he gets up and heads towards the source of the noise to investigate, as I follow closely behind him. The noise leads us towards the kitchen back door, and at first we can see this hooded figure attempting to open the door. We thought it was a home burglar, but we would be wrong when Josh turns on the back porch light. To our surprise, it was a girl, And not just any girl. It's Josh's ex, and she's got a knife. I let out a scream as through the window, Josh asks her what she was doing and why she was armed with a blade. She proceeds to cry and laugh maniacally, and then starts banging on the door, saying to let her in so that she could, from my best recollection, cut me up into bit-sized pieces. I nearly had a panic attack as my body went cold seeing her, as she then started to kick at the door with all of her might. I immediately phoned for the police, as Josh is doing all he can to get her to calm down. However, during the phone call, his ex says that she was going to go after Josh too, make him pay for all the heartbreak he had caused her. It's just so scary looking back and thinking how she pretty much looked as if she was possessed. And I'm not trying to sound mean, but that's the best way I could describe it. In any case, the cops arrived just as she walked off the property, and we can hear the officers tell her to drop the knife. I proceed to run over to the front living room alongside Josh, and we see through the window as she tosses the blade into the bush, and then they go and handcuff her. The cops ended up questioning Josh and I extensively, since the ex kept saying we were in the wrong, but when all was said and done, we were cleared. Unfortunately, for myself and Josh, we had a falling out a couple of weeks after that incident, after it resolved itself. It started as a break, but it ultimately ended on a mutual level. I just couldn't take it after all that drama I was put through, which really affected my mind. Since then, I've moved on, bought a home, and I've married a wonderful man who I love very much. I occasionally check up on Josh a couple of times a year, and he's doing great. He himself also got married, and he has 2 beautiful boys. I actually messaged him before writing this, and I asked if it was okay to share, and he was cool about it. He even helped me with remembering some of the important details. Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the end of today's episode. Make sure that if you enjoyed it, you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button if you're brand new, and you turn on the notifications, and leave me a comment and tell me what you thought. Also, if you'd like to be featured on a future episode, then make sure you send in your story using my user submissions email, TCFNarrations@gmail.com. Also, if you're ever so inclined to do so, then check out the channel memberships I have. My channel members enjoy early access to all my future uploads, as well as get shoutouts in all the videos, which I want to go ahead and shout them out just now. Thank you to Bo, Robbie, Spunky the Nutcase, Corey, Haiti, Scott, Vicky, Hunt42, Sean, Stephanie, Tabitha, Ingrid, Bella, and Twisted Little Heart. Thank you, channel members, for your support. It really means a lot, and it goes a long way. Also, I just wanted to remind you all that another way to support me is by checking out the merchandise, which you can find right below the video, or by visiting my channel. It's an awesome way to rep the Creepy Fox and support me too. Lastly, I just wanted to go ahead and once again say thank you to GenSen for joining me on today's episode. Make sure to show him some love and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and check out the awesome narrations he uploads there as well. But hey friends, I know it's kind of been a while since I talked to all of you, so I wanted to go ahead and do that right now. So how have I been? How are things going? And what's the schedule looking after today's upload? Well, things have been okay. We had some interesting stuff happen here at my house. Let's just say that I pretty much had to lock down because a family member ended up getting the you-know-what. It sucks, I can't even say the word because good old you-know-what, YouTube will be like, oh, he can't say that word, that's a no-no. But just to let you guys know, everyone's fine, everything's good. Everyone was able to return to work just fine, and we're all good, so that's great. As for the upload schedule here on the channel, I'm still looking to, do more videos for you guys. Obviously, I do really just ask you all that You're sending in your stories on the user submissions email. It was actually surprising that I actually got Yandere Stories. I know that's been a topic that people have wanted for a long time, so it was cool that, the three people that sent in your stories for this topic. Thank you. I really enjoyed being able to feature your stories on today's episode. And again, if you guys want to have your story featured on one of my future videos, then share it. That way we can continue on with this TCF podcast. But one thing that's going to continue as well? My anime, Aria Rose, which right now it's still in pre-production. As you know, people that have been following me, you've kind of seen some of the little animation stuff I've been producing over the past couple of months. 2021 is going to be no different. Myself, the awesome voice actresses I've been working with, and my talented animator Leonardo, we're going to be working on more stuff for all of you. So if you guys want to see that stuff, you can actually check it out on my Instagram. That's kind of where I post more about it. When it comes to actually uploading clips here on YouTube, like the animation stuff, I usually wait until we actually have something. I like the videos I've been uploading. So if you guys want behind the scenes with that stuff, and then make sure to go follow my Instagram at @TheCreepyFoxOfficial, since that Instagram is more dedicated to my animation stuff, and YouTube is, well, it's dedicated more to the scary stories with the occasional animation stuff uploaded here. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it for today's episode. Thank you again to my channel members. Thank you to GenSen. And of course, thank you to all you wonderful folks who watch and support my videos. I love every single one of you. And I'll catch you all in the next episode of Scary Stories. Take care. Have yourself an amazing day.